Why, though? Where was the initial spark, the idea? When did you sit down and think, this is it? We're going to shame, we're going to embarrass, we're going to go in there and infiltrate.
Well, the idea actually came from the anti-globalization movement, and quite by accident. In 1999, we couldn't make it to the Seattle protests against the World Trade Organization, and so we did what to us was the next or the third best thing. We set up a fake website making fun of the World Trade Organization, and to our surprise, a lot of people didn't realize we were making fun of it, and we started getting email intended for the World Trade Organization, and finally we got invited to a conference, and we decided to go.
Is that the way in many ways? It's the website first. You create this website, you sit back, you show us in the film, you sit back and you wait for the fish to bite, or the big companies, the big corporations to bite.
Yeah, it's a bit like fishing, though, and sometimes they're not biting, so then you have to get a little bit more aggressive. You know, the stick of dynamite in the water, that kind of the trawl net, the giant net. You know, we started to do things that opened the door a little more aggressively, like pretending to be from a public relations company and writing to a conference and saying, hey, I represent this huge, big-name person who you really want at your conference. And they always want those people. So.
And the hint to listeners, if you do want to do this, you can also just search on Google on speaking opportunities, and you'll get a whole slew of pages that you can just fill out.
And make up your credentials,
yeah.
And just... Is it that easy?
It's that easy. I mean, for those things, you know, they often want you to pay something for the honor of speaking at their conference, but you can do it.
Of course, 2004, you come up with the absolute coup. You... wangle your way onto the BBC World Television channel. 300 million viewers, I think.
That's what they said.
All over the globe. You represent yourself as Dow Chemical and go on screen, live broadcast, and announce a $12 billion compensation package for the victims of Bhopal. Were you nervous at all?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Nerves of steel.
In the film, I think I can detect the shaking. I mean, it's...
That was all acting.
Oh.
I was calm as a cucumber. Yeah. No,
Are we allowed to say he was shiting himself? Is that
Probably-
allowed on the radio?
Probably not, but you've done it.
We were being ourselves. I was. I was hideously nervous. Obviously, I was like once in a lifetime opportunity, and I was most nervous that it would fall through, and that somebody at the BBC. One of the many people at the office would notice something wrong, and we got there, of course, and there was only one person, and she was fulfilling many different roles at once, and it was just a relief to be able to start speaking and to start, saying this message that we really wanted the world to hear, which is that Dow could very easily do something about the situation in Bhopal, and here's how easy it would be.
Why did you need to pretend to be them to do that? I mean, why not just demonstrate, protest, call for that? Why did you feel you had to pretend you were actually them?
Well, the culture that we're in respects money. And so if you pretend to be very, very fabulously wealthy and powerful, then people listen to you. It's miraculous. Whereas, if you're a regular individual like us, they're never going to listen. So we've kind of taken these drastic measures to try to get the truth out.
It was quite a drastic measure too, wasn't it? And share price of Dow Chemical plummeted $2 billion in 23 minutes, I think your film says. Shareholders abandoning the company as they realised what they thought you were intending.
We ruined so many grandmothers' retirement accounts. At least some of the press said that. Totally false. It rebounded within 20 minutes. And anyways, of course, these things are tiny sums within enormous seas of capital, but it was $2 billion.
Of course, others said it was a cruel trick to play on the victims of Bhopal.
Right.
They suddenly thought they were getting compensation, only to have it dashed an hour or two later when you were exposed as hoaxes.
Yeah, and strangely, we actually believed that too and felt really bad until we actually talked to the victims who told us that they thought it was great. So that was a big shocker for us. I think, especially in the UK, people maybe they have a lot of information, first of all, about Bhopal, and secondly, we found that a lot of people have a kind of, I don't know if it's a colonial guilt complex or what, but they think that these victims, that they're very easily victimized by a joke, when in fact they're committed activists who have worked for 20 years to try to, pin the blame where it belongs, with Dow.
Yeah, as soon as they understood why we had done it and what the effect in the media was. They were completely overjoyed. And you see that, of course, in the film.
Did you feel guilty, though? Because you say you see that in the film.
Well,
at times it feels like you were desperate to get their blessing. It almost... Stage managed is not quite the right word, but it seems you've sought out people who are going to be very enthusiastic about what you did.
Well, once we were in India, of course, we had long known that they were enthusiastic about it. They, in fact, invited us to India. The reality is that we found out about a month after the appearance on the BBC that they were very happy about it, and that all our fears of false hopes were silly.
Did you get any stick? I mean, did anybody say, how dare you?
No.
Nobody?
Nobody in India. None of the so-called victims of our hoaxes have ever given us any stick besides the big corporate ones, the powerful ones.
Yeah, I mean, the victims, and I'm using quote marks, of the hoax, the people who actually believed it for any length of time or at all, who even heard about it, they were people who were actively campaigning to force Dow to do something about Bhopal. They were not the thousands of people in Bhopal who have still not gotten compensation and are waiting for it and are forced to drink the groundwater there. Those people don't have televisions. Those people did not hear the announcement. The people who heard the announcement were the ones who were in the street, who were active campaigners, and they were disappointed that their campaign had not, in fact, succeeded the way they thought it had. But as soon as they understood what it was about, of course, they were overjoyed.
What do you think it achieved by going on?
Liability, and that they are basically, according to even Indian courts, absconding from justice, because just 2 weeks ago, the courts issued a new warrant of arrest for Warren Anderson, who's the former CEO of Union Carbide, who's now living in Long Island. So this struggle continues, and we just gave it a little bit more presence, especially in the U.S.
Elsewhere in Yes Men Fix the World, the film, you're at conferences, you're addressing industry conferences, business leaders, with quite farcical projects. I mean, they're hilarious, but the reaction you get from these people isn't outrage, it's just sort of, some are indifferent, some are actually quite respectful. They come up to you afterwards. You try to convince them that there's a survivor ball suit for disasters, a Halliburton survivor ball, which turns you into something like a character out of the Teletubbies. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But somebody comes up to you afterwards and says, respect, yeah, this sort of appeals to me because I'm trying to market terrorism around the world. And you think, what on earth? I mean, is that what you're trying to engage and get that response, are you?
Well, we're trying to document it if that response exists. I mean, our hope behind all this is that we'll actually spark something in people, and they'll go, oh, I see what you're talking about. This is horrible. How dare Halliburton say this? It's fine, of course they believe we're Halliburton. We've weaseled our way into the conference. But then once Halliburton says, it doesn't matter if everybody dies as long as the extremely wealthy can survive, and here's how, where it's just appalling that they actually go along with this.
Now, in another case, you pose as an Exxon representative announcing a brand new biofuel made out of the victims of climate change. And you hand out candles and they're put on the tables as they eat their lavish lunches, and what it slowly sinks in, what they're burning is a candle made out of, supposedly, human flesh. Mm-hmm. Again, not a great reaction, though. It's just a little snuffing out of the candle and, oh, it's ruined my soup or my souffle or my canapé. Did that shock you? Did that surprise you?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we were relieved there was some reaction. We were hustled off the stage and taken to a holding cell, but it wasn't the kind of reaction that maybe Exxon presenting that sort of a solution to climate change would merit. Yeah.
The thrust of the film seems to be a criticism of blind worship of free market, capitalism, corporate greed. Is that what you set out to do? Has that always been the intention?
Yeah, I think that, in a lot of ways, the end of the film was also sort of the end of the high-flying years of the free market, and we didn't expect that the end of our film would sort of coincide so well with the ending of that period of capitalism. But in hindsight, we were following that trajectory, and you could feel how strange and propped up the system was, and you can see that there's an end point to that. Like, you can't have a system that demands continual growth and expect that we won't use everything up. So, I think in the end, it's the message that we set out with when we did the BBC thing. It's just we found our way along with history.
But do you want to do away with these sort of companies, these multinationals? Do you want them policed better? If so, who should be doing the policing? Is it governments? Is it individual? I mean, what do you ideally want?
Well, the people's only real control, or our only power, is through government, unfortunately. Actually buying products that we like and not buying products that we don't like really achieves extremely little. And shareholder power is minimal too, because ultimately the vast bulk of shareholders just want to make more money for their retirement. So really, if we're to have any political power in the system, it's unfortunately only through democracy. And so, our goal would be to subsidize and incentivize those behaviors that we like, and to regulate the ones that we don't like. And somehow over the last 30, 40 years, with Thatcher in the UK and Reagan in the US, and all from Milton Friedman in some way, we've gotten this ideology that you just let companies do whatever they want, don't bother them, don't incentivize them or regulate them or anything, things will be great. And it's completely preposterous.
But isn't that part of the American dream? Isn't that the ideology behind it all? You can do what you want, personal freedom.
It's one American dream.
You don't believe in it?
Well, I also think that it's, the right in the U.S. has fairly successfully co-opted that idea of the American dream, but you can go back to plenty of other periods where the American dream was that there was more equity, that there was more equality, that there was a better standard of living for everyone, that there was a certain amount of protection for the things that made a good social environment. And we'd like to see a return to those values that benefit everybody instead of a few people at the top.
How much of it is about corporate greed, and how much in what you do is it about the thirst of the media companies, the rolling news networks, the demand for story, whatever it be? You seem to be almost sort of trying to expose that as you go along. It's this eternal quest for something.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it is, isn't it? Incidentally, maybe we do expose that as well, but that's not really our main target. We see what we do primarily as a form of collaboration with journalists who want to squeeze something out despite this absurd corporate control of the media. And so we provide these funny stories that get these important bits of information into the media, and they highlight these activist struggles in a way they might not otherwise be.
How much is it about yourselves, though? So, throughout the film, it's very entertaining. Series of different hats are worn, colours, and ridiculous backdrops to speakers. We've got film of you in boats, in swamps, underwater, all sorts of things. It feels like a bit of a cult of the yes man as well. It's more than just exposing. There's entertainment there.
Well, yeah. You have to have characters for a movie, or at least that's the idea that we started with.
But does that get in the way of what you're trying to expose?
We hope not.
I would think for some people it does. Some people think that if a documentary is funny and if a documentary has characters in it, then it can't possibly be saying serious things, and they get annoyed. But, we're not purists when it comes to the documentary form or format. And if people want to go see a date movie, a really funny movie that is basically also a documentary and has information in it, then they can come see our movie if they don't want to leave crying, Although the guy today did say he was crying, he was in tears when he left the theater.
Oh, sorry.
Tears of joy, he told me.
We bitterly disappointed.
He signed up for the email list.
Cruel false hopes.
But is there pressure? There's been such a rise in prank spoof documentaries, political documentaries, trying to expose. Do you find yourselves under pressure? How can we make it entertaining? How can we do something different?
Absolutely. Our goal is really to get this film in front of a mass audience. It's not to communicate a maximum of information for people who already know a lot. It's to actually bring these things to a very large audience. So we have to make it entertaining, like a mainstream movie. Also, it's very fun to do it this way.
But is it about the film or the subject matter?
It's about the subject matter.
But done in the most entertaining way possible.
Right, because we want to bring it to a large audience, so we have to. But we also, there is a lot of information in the film as well. We just communicate it with a wry grin often.
At the end of the film, you bring out this spoof copy of the New York Times. I think you deliver 100,000 copies around New York with good news. The war in Iraq is over. The oil companies are going to fund research and measures to combat climate change. Does that fix the world, though? I mean, do you fix the world, as the title implies?
Well, I think that, we have a lot of negativity to overcome. There's a lot of people who say, we're in this system that we can't possibly change. It's too big, too powerful. And that's not true. I mean, we made this system. People made it. People can change it. People can change it overnight. And if we're faced with a crisis, and the climate crisis is the biggest crisis that we've ever faced, according to scientists, if you believe them, those crazy people. And so we should be able to change the system so that it promotes sustainability instead of just using everything up. We've done it before. World War II, assembly lines were changed over in a period of months, from making things like consumer products to making war machines. We should have an effort that's bigger than what was mounted during the Second World War.
But that's not happening, is it? If you look at the way countries are responding to this current recession, they're talking about growth, an increase in consumer goods, pumping more money into the system. It's not really changing, is it?
That's why we need to redouble our efforts. And there are a lot of activists who are really pushing a global movement that's gaining momentum. And we have every reason to believe that it is going to be successful.
I saw the enthusiasm in your eyes there when you said redouble our efforts. What are you planning? What's the next Yes Men escapade?
Well, there are some secrets, and then there's some things that are not so secret. We're building hundreds of survivaballs, which we will be using to blockade, businesses and government offices all around the world
and permit hundreds of people to survive the ravages of climate change.
And that's just one of many things. We've got a new game called challenge.theyesmen.org, and it is basically it's called the Yes Men Challenge. That's where it's located. And it's a way for people to communicate and participate in projects similar to what we've done. We've also got a climate pledge of resistance, beyondtalk.net, that we're participating in, where people can go and volunteer themselves for direct action.
But does this film now make it more difficult for you to operate? You're now superstars. Everybody's going to know your face. Every news organisation or corporate company has probably got a picture of you nailed up on the back wall or on a dartboard. Or I mean, is it going to make it more difficult to pull these sort of stunts off?
Not so far. We don't think so. I mean, already in the film, people in these conferences recognized us often and just let them happen because they wanted to see it. And people within these contexts don't necessarily believe that this is the right way to run the world. They're just trying to make a buck as well. But, if we are blocked from conferences, it's also not the end of the world. It's not rocket science what we do. We've launched this challenge at challenge.theyesmen.org, where we give away all our secrets and encourage people to try it themselves. It's not very hard to do.
Do you ever think I've gone one step too far? I've never seen you look so frightened in your life when you suddenly realised that the mayor of New Orleans was coming to address the conference that you thought you were addressing, and panic sets in.
And that he had come because of who we said we were. Yeah, that was a moment when we thought, maybe we went too far. But
did you get on all right once he realised what you'd done? Or are you still not speaking?
To him, we tried to speak to him once after that. He wouldn't talk to us, but we still have hope. We can have a coffee and change his mind about the way to run New Orleans.
Mike, Andy, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And our film is playing on Tuesday night.
Oh yeah.
Nationwide.
Cinemas across the UK. It's a live link-up.
Yeah, and if you want to find
That's what I gather.
Yeah.
Dressed as yourselves, or in a survivor ball? Or?
There will be survivables available. If anybody wants to come to Sheffield, that's where we'll be, and we can put you in one.
Yeah.
We'll test one out.
All right, they've heard it here. There'll probably be a queue forming as we speak. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.